Happy Friday, everyone. And we're live. It's always good when you're just about to hit the live stream button and it says your network is down. So I am a minute late. I don't like to be late. So welcome to, normally I do the Rebel Roundtable on Friday mornings, but today is a bankruptcy nerd alert because the new bankruptcy numbers came out for January. And the nerd that I am, I like to run through what they look like, what the trends look like, and what the headlines say versus what's actually true. And so I am Jen Lee, aka Rebel Esquire, is my superhero persona, bankruptcy nerd by day, superhero by night. So let us jump in and I will share my lovely screen here with presentations and all kinds of cool things going on. And we'll do some digging into these numbers. So I'm going to share my entire window because I've got a couple of things to show you as we go through things. So just ignore all the tabs that you see open sometimes, including my face. There we go. So let me minimize up here. Let's jump into the bankruptcy nerd alert. So this is January of 2026. Today is February 6th of 2026. So we are looking up the numbers for the bankruptcy filings that occurred in January of this year. And just as a reminder, I do teach bankruptcy to lawyers and support staff. I have a full workshop in adding bankruptcy as a practice area and about 12 hours of content, including templates and actual schedule review and things like that. Support staff training is a fairly new offering, and that has been really fun to work with support staff to make offices run smoother. And then I have two communities, Bankruptcy Toolbox and Bankruptcy Boardroom, for lawyers who are looking for others who are providing innovative ways to serve bankruptcy clients. And all of that is available at lawyersuccessnetwork.com. So commercial chapter 11, this was the big headline. The big headline was January commercial chapter 11 filings increased 76% over 2025. So you see that and you're like, holy moly. That's a huge increase. What's going on? The economy's failing, craziness. Well, if you've heard me talk before, you can make statistics say whatever you want. But I also like to talk about the trends and why sometimes we see these big jumps, and especially in certain months. This month isn't that big on the commercial side to worry about what month it is, but we're going to talk in a second of why there was a 76% increase. And I just realized I didn't update my subchapter 5 numbers. That's not good. So January 25 to 2026 for commercial chapter 11s was a 76% increase. Subchapter 5s was a 68% increase. That is correct, but it should be January 2025 to January 2026 when I copied over the slide. Oops, made a mistake. So there was a 68% increase in subchapter 5, which is huge. We are seeing like monumental jumps in subchapter 5, which if you're not in the bankruptcy world too often, that is the small business version of chapter 11, supposed to be more streamlined, less expensive than a full chapter 11. So those are the small business ones that are struggling right now. But as I said, that 76% increase is misleading this month because, wait, in January 2025, there were 544 commercial chapter 11 cases filed. So that 78% jump took us up to 956 cases. However, there was one huge filing that had 109 related cases. So, which are complex cases, don't get me wrong. There's like 700 docket entries in this main case for Saks right now, but it inflates numbers that makes it look like more bankruptcies are being filed when really it's a complex reorganization that's happening between 110 entities under the Saks umbrella. And so the way to find that, or the way to look, is if you hear of a big bankruptcy filing, I'm going to switch over to a PDF. So what I did was I went out and pulled down the Saks main case filing. And this is the petition that's filed on the docket for Saks Global Enterprises. And if you scroll down, one of the questions on the petition, I'm getting really nerdy now. I don't usually jump into like bankruptcy petitions in the Bankruptcy Nerd Alert. But if you scroll down, there is a question number 10 asks, are there any related cases? Business partner or affiliate of the debtor. And it says, see Schedule 1. So sometimes, I mean, if there's more than one case, then you have to attach it. However, in this case, if you scroll down to Schedule 1, we get 2 pages, 109 cases of all of the affiliated entities. And you'll see like all the different states. A lot of it is the real estate that they hold are in separate LLCs. And so that blows up the numbers. This was filed in the Southern District of Texas in Houston, and it increases the number of cases out there, but it really is one big case. I'm sure the attorneys would appreciate me saying that it's one big case, because it's a lot of work to have all these affiliated entities filed together. So that does make it look a little bit different, because if you take out those 110 cases, the percent increase is much lower than 78%. However, if you just read the headlines, I'll go back to if you just read the headlines, it looks like Chapter 11 exploded in January of this year and what's happening. So that's why I like to talk about the underlying numbers that go into things sometimes, because it's very interesting. So that's the commercial side. Let's jump over to the individual side. Individual Chapter 7s, we saw a modest 13% increase. If you remember in December, it was like a 24% increase, which was a little bit unique, different than usually we see. We usually don't see a lot of cases filed in December unless they're trying to get something in before the end of the year. Usually cases start picking up in the beginning of the year, because people in December are usually looking at the holidays and not necessarily looking at filing bankruptcy. So the fact that there is an increase happening, we're seeing more cases from December, but it was a little bit lower. The other thing I will say about individual Chapter 7s is January is probably not the biggest month of the year for the actual filings. In my course, we talk through timelines and average trends that you'll see and how to predict your case flow. January, you will often see tons and tons of clients and consults coming in, because everybody's got those New Year's resolutions to get out of debt and resolve issues in finances. And so a lot of times January is really busy when you look at your calendar from a initial consult perspective. Not always the busiest month for filings unless someone really needs to get filed right away. Usually it takes people a couple months to pay. So we're looking February, March, and April tend to be higher months in that trend of filings. But over last year, it was a 13% increase. Chapter 13s, 6% increase. So generally, Chapter 13s are about 25% of individual filings. Chapter 7s are about 75% of filings. Chapter 13s require income, and there are also other reasons to file Chapter 13. And so I don't see huge increases in Chapter 13 as often as we see Chapter 7s fluctuating. But again, it's still increasing back to pre-pandemic levels, which, if you've heard me talk before, I have said that first quarter of 2020 was my highest revenue month ever, because I was seeing so much uptrend in bankruptcy work at the time. And then it all fell off the cliff in March of 2020. Total individual filings, so that's between Chapters 7 and 13, was a 10% increase. So significant increase. Again, every month that's going up, usually between 5 and 15%. December was higher, actually. So I have some upcoming live trainings today, this afternoon. We're doing advanced Chapter 13. Tuesday, every month, we do a hypo hour in the Bankruptcy Toolbox, which is just basically bring any questions that you have regarding cases. If you have a weird situation and you want to bounce it off, it's kind of like a brainstorming session where you get to totally nerd out on any bankruptcy questions you have. I sometimes will pull up interesting opinions that just came out to bring them to people's attention. They're also posted in the group. Next week, we're also doing charging for bankruptcy consults. That has come up several times. And so we're doing a quick spin-off of how to do that. And then next Friday, February 13th, is the 5-hour bankruptcy support staff workshop live. It is recorded. It's fun to do the live versions. And so that's next Friday. And then February 26th, the last Thursday of the month, is the Bankruptcy Business Lab. And this one month, we're doing client onboarding made easy. How do you get your clients to onboard and set expectations? So that is coming up on the 26th. If you have bankruptcy nerd things you want to run by me, reach out. LawyerSuccessNetwork.com is my website, and I will go back to being my usual bankruptcy nerd self. Thank you for listening in to my bankruptcy nerdiness, and we will see you all definitely next month for Bankruptcy Nerd Alert. But if anything comes out in the meantime, I will let you know. Thank you. This is Jen Lee, your bankruptcy nerd.